For real, y'all really took away my whole life. And this is like not fair to me because there's some food that I left out. Some food that I left out. Like, that's insane, bro. That's insane as hell.
Those are the words of 27-year-old Akil Searcy, speaking from a hospital bed, paralyzed from the neck down. The person who took his life, someone who was supposed to protect him, someone who was supposed to love him. His father's boyfriend pulled the trigger, but his mother is convinced his father orchestrated the whole thing. And the most shocking part, she might be right. Akil Searcy was living in Albany, Georgia, when his entire world collapsed. Before we get into what happened, you need to understand the family dynamic here, because this is where everything starts to make sense. Akil grew up with his father, Desmond Searcy, and his mother, Sharita Karan. They had 2 kids together, Akil and his younger sister, Aliyah. From the outside looking in, they looked like your typical family. Social media showed love, togetherness, all those happy family pictures. Desmond seemed like a devoted father, maybe a little too devoted to discipline, but we'll get to that now. Desmond wasn't playing when it came to raising his kids, and I mean, he really wasn't playing. Let me tell you something. This man went viral back in the day for making his teenage daughter walk to school in the rain because she stayed up too late on her phone and missed the bus. He literally followed her in his car while she walked, filmed it, and posted the whole thing on Facebook like it was some kind of parenting achievement. News crews showed up. People had opinions. Some folks called the police on him. But Desmond, he stood by it. Here's what he had to say about it. Ultimately, I want my daughter to know, and I want everybody in the city to know, I love my children. I promise I do. But what I'm not going to do is raise a child that society says is not a productive component to society, and then that makes it look bad on me. That right there tells you everything you need to know about Desmond Searcy. It's not really about the kids. It's about how he looks, his image, his reputation. Keep that in mind because it's going to matter later. Moving on to Akil, this young man had his whole life ahead of him. He went to Albany State University, worked at Piggly Wiggly, worked at Primerica, and on the side, he was building a career in music production. His friends said he was talented, driven, the type of person who was going somewhere. He had dreams, real dreams, and he was putting in the work to make them happen. But then things shifted in the family. Desmond and Sharita's marriage fell apart. They separated. And not long after that, Desmond started dating someone new, a man named Shelton Johnson. Now look, this was a major change for Akil and Aliyah. Their parents split up, and now their father is bringing a man into their lives. But here's the thing. According to what we know, both kids accepted it. They embraced their father's decision. They loved him regardless of what their friends might have said about the situation. Shelton moved into Desmond's home, and from what we can see on social media, things looked okay. Shelton even posted on Father's Day praising Desmond, calling him the world's greatest dad. But if you've been paying attention long enough, you know that what happens on social media and what happens behind closed doors are 2 completely different things. Akil was trying to build his life. He was working, making music, doing his thing. His sister Aliyah had graduated from the University of West Georgia. On the surface, despite the family changes, everyone seemed to be moving forward. But Desmond's approach to parenting never changed. That strictness, that need for control, that obsession with discipline and respect, it was still there. And according to Akil's mother, it was about to turn deadly. Because what started as a simple argument about keeping the house clean would end with a gunshot, a shattered spine, and a young man fighting for his life. Now, to really understand what happened to Akil, we need to hear from his mother, Sharita, because what she's been saying about Desmond paints a completely different picture from the devoted father he claimed to be. Sharita met Desmond back in college. He was a sophomore. She was a freshman, part of the welcome committee. She thought he was assertive, liked his vibe, but when people found out she was interested in him, they started pulling her aside with warnings. You know he's bisexual, right? So, Sharita went directly to him. She wasn't about to be in a situation she didn't sign up for, and Desmond told her a story. Said when he was a child, he was molested by a man, and it left him confused about his sexuality. He assured her, "I'm straight, but I do have tendencies." She believed him. They moved forward. By the end of her freshman year, she was pregnant with Akil. But here's where things get dark. When Akil was born, he had complications. Jaundice, umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He was in the NICU for days. And Desmond showed no concern, didn't check on his son, nothing. Sharita said that was the first red flag, but she ignored it. When Akil turned 1 year old, Desmond started beating him. And I'm not talking about spankings. Sharita said he would take the baby's diaper off and hit him so hard, trying to discipline a 1 year old. When she questioned him, when she told him to stop, Desmond would say, "He needs to know who's in charge. He needs to know who the boss is." Let that sink in. A 1 year old baby. Despite all the red flags, despite her family's reservations, Sharita married him in their junior year. By senior year, she was pregnant with their daughter, Aaliyah. She said Desmond wasn't as harsh with Aaliyah as he was with Akil. It got so bad that Sharita was calling the police on him because of how he treated their son, but she felt trapped in the marriage, didn't know how to leave safely. Then one day, everything came to light. Sharita was working for USA Today at the time, at one of their sister magazines. Her editor could tell she was exhausted, told her to go home and rest. When she pulled up to her house, there was another car in the driveway she didn't recognize. All the lights were off inside. She went in, walked straight to the basement, and there was Desmond in bed with their preacher. The man she'd married, the man she'd had 2 children with, the man who told her back in college that he was straight with tendencies, caught in bed with a man of God. Sharita said the only words she could put together were, "We're definitely getting a divorce." Desmond started begging, "Please, please, please don't get a divorce." Not because he loved her, but because this would destroy his image. But Sharita was done. She filed for divorce. Here's what you need to understand. Sharita was the breadwinner. She paid the rent, handled all the bills, took care of the kids. By divorcing him, Desmond was about to lose his financial stability. So he came up with a plan. He convinced Sharita to take one last family vacation before telling the kids about the divorce. "Just an hour away," he said. She agreed. They got in the car with the kids, started driving, and within an hour they got pulled over by police. Not just one squad car, 5 squad cars. Turns out, Desmond had been illegally buying firearms and selling them to convicted felons who couldn't purchase them legally. The police arrested him right there on the side of the road in front of his family. So now Desmond is in jail on a felony charge. Sharita is visiting him with the kids, and he's using the situation to manipulate her. "You can't leave me now. I need you." The divorce proceedings went on hold. He eventually got out on bail since it was his first offense. But now he's a felon who can't work. Even though Sharita points out he barely worked before, she's still providing for the family, still paying all the bills, and they're falling behind. That's when Desmond came up with another plan. He told Sharita he knew how they could make extra money. He was going to set her up on Craigslist to be with other men. He was going to escort her out. And for the next year, that's exactly what happened. But Sharita was using that money for something else, getting a lawyer to finally go through with the divorce. When she was ready, her lawyer advised her to make sure she and the kids were already settled somewhere else before serving him the papers. She applied to Kent State University for a master's program, got accepted, got housing for her and the kids. She was awarded full custody. The judge tried to order child support, but Desmond couldn't pay. So Sharita said, forget it, and moved on with her life. After 2 years at Kent State, Sharita got a good job in New York. She was about to move the kids there when Desmond suggested they stay with him for the summer while she got settled. She thought, great, he's finally helping. So she dropped Akil and Aaliyah off and headed to New York to set up their new life. But when she came back to pick up the kids at the end of summer, 2 cops were waiting for her. They charged her with neglect and abandonment because she dropped the kids off 3 months prior and supposedly nobody had heard from her. Sharita tried to explain she'd been in contact with Desmond the whole time, had everything in writing. The cops didn't want to hear it. They told her to take it to court. In court, Desmond used an Ohio law called consistency of care against her. He argued that because the kids had been with him for 3 months, they were more stable there. The magistrate bought it. Desmond was awarded full custody. And because Sharita had a good income in New York, she was ordered to pay him $69,000 in child support for those 3 months. The woman who had fought to protect her kids from their abusive father just lost them through legal manipulation. She fell into a deep depression, kept going back to court trying to get custody back. Every time she was denied, and during all those years the kids lived with Desmond, Sharita says he continued to abuse them, beat them until they went unconscious and urinated on themselves, made them use the bathroom outside, did horrible things. And even when she had proof, even when she brought evidence to the courts, it was never enough to get her kids back. Desmond spent those years brainwashing Akil and Aaliyah, convincing them he was the only one who truly loved them, that their mother was no good, that if they ever tried to live with her, there would be consequences. Before Akil went off to college, Desmond made him sign onto a mortgage together, locking his son into financial obligations. Then, after a few years in college, Akil had a mental breakdown. Desmond convinced him to come home, and when Akil tried to defend himself during an argument, grabbed a butter knife in frustration, Desmond called the police and claimed his son threatened his life. They arrested Akil. He spent over a year in jail. When Akil got out about 8 months ago, he didn't want anything to do with his father. The family came together, got him his own apartment. He was working, making music, finally building the life he'd always wanted. He was independent and doing well. But then the bills started piling up. The stress got to him. And Desmond did what he does best, manipulated his son into coming back home. Within a week of Akil moving back into his father's house, this happened. It was June 22nd, 2024, a regular Saturday that turned into a nightmare. According to the official police report, Desmond and Akil got into an argument about cleanliness. Desmond told Akil he needed to clean up, needed to do better around the house. The argument escalated. Voices got louder. Desmond claims Akil started yelling in his face, so he pushed him. Then, according to Desmond, Akil started punching him repeatedly in the face and head before walking away. That's when a gunshot rang out. Desmond ran outside and called 911. When police arrived, they found Desmond standing outside his home. He told officers his son had been shot inside. Police entered the house and found Shelton Johnson on top of Akquil, applying pressure to a gunshot wound in his neck. Akquil was conscious, barely. He told first responders he couldn't feel his legs. He was in pain. And then, according to the police report, he said something that didn't make sense. He told them he shot himself. No further explanation, just, "I shot myself." Then his eyes closed like he was about to lose consciousness. When detectives interviewed Desmond at the scene, he said Akquil had been battling mental health issues for the last 5 years, that he'd just been released from a crisis center 4 days earlier. He said after he pushed Akquil and got punched, he heard the gunshot and ran out. He claimed he didn't know what happened, that it all happened so fast. But he made sure to tell police one thing: the gun that was used belonged to Shelton. The bullet did catastrophic damage. It tore through Akil's aortic valve, shattered his spine, and left fragments lodged in his back. Doctors told his family that Akil would be paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life. He would only be able to speak through a voice box, a 27-year-old man with dreams of making music, with a whole life ahead of him, reduced to this over an argument about cleaning up. But here's where Sharita says the real crime happened. And honestly, when you hear what she discovered, it's going to make your blood boil. Now, here's where Sharita believes the real setup happened. And when you hear what she found out, you're going to understand why she's convinced Desmond orchestrated this whole thing.
Number one question of why. Why would somebody like him want to shoot in his son and leave? A number one question of why. Why would somebody like him want to shoot in his son and leave him for dead? Well, I did post the full police report so that you can break that down. And the internet aunties and uncles, investigators, are going to have a field day with that one. But let's get back to him. He shot him for no reason at all. When I say no reason at all, I really mean that. He shot him or he had him shot, or there was a shooting because my son didn't keep the house clean, or he didn't keep his room clean. So he had to scold him. He had to reprimand him. He had to let him know who was in charge, because ain't no way in the world that you should have a dirty room. You should die. You should be unalive because your room is not clean. That is the reason why my son was shot. Okay? Now, let's get down to the details. So, I went to Albany, Georgia today. I did. And because I needed to get all of the details. So when I'm telling you this story, I needed you to know every single detail, because it's so important to understand how he just literally got away with attempted murder. Here we go. So, according to the detective, my ex made sure that she got the camera footage, ring camera footage, in her home of the boyfriend holding a gun in the ring camera and walking to the room. Now, who was in the room? My son was in the room. My ex was in front of my son. and his boyfriend was behind him. So the way it goes is that the boyfriend allegedly, was sick and tired of the back and forth between his lover and his lover's son, and he wanted to do the heroic thing and help save him and shoot my son for justice for his lover. That's the way it's set up. But according to the footage, you can't see who shot the gun whatsoever. So after the gun is shot, my son goes down. This guy right here, like ass coward he is, runs out and waits for the police to make sure that he establishes an alibi that his lover was the one that shot him. He didn't just establish an alibi that his lover was the one that shot him. He had to ensure that they knew that he was the one. So literally made sure that he gave the ring camera footage to the cops to say, look, he has a gun on camera. Don't you find that suspicious? Okay. So anyway, everyone in the house is questioned. Everyone in the house is, questioned about exactly what happened. So the boyfriend says, look, I didn't do this, but I would do anything for him because I love him. That is my man. I love him, and he's ruined my life twice. So, it is what it is. That's my boo. We evil twins together. So, whether he did it or not, the boyfriend saying, I'm going to take the rap because that is my man and we ride or die. But you dying and he riding. So they went to the hospital, and you have to know something about this psychotic CIA level narcissist mentalist, okay? What you need to know about this man is he can look at you. He can stare you down and put the fear of God in you in a way that's uncanny. And he goes to the hospital like an endearing father, and he waits till detectives get to the location, and they're talking to my barely unconscious son, and they're saying, well, did your father shoot you? And he looks at him, and he's just like, no, scared. And then they say, well, did the boyfriend shoot you? And he looks at again, and like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you look at the police report, analyze the police report, which I'm also going to post again after this, you really are going to be like, what? Like, huh? So initially they said he shot himself, but then later the boyfriend shot him. And then they didn't know where the shots came from. It just magically appeared like Lucky Charms. So in a nutshell, the detective said, well, we have the smoking gun, literally, and the boyfriend is overly excited to plead guilty in self-defense of defending his lover against his horrible son that was literally ravaging his dad. This man right here prides himself, y'all, on evading police. He prides himself on evading law enforcement and tricking judges and tricking public defenders and stuff like that. And he's like a slippery worm. He is. And he has success. Like, it should be studied. And my last thought is, Annalise, Keaton should absolutely have him on the next season of How to Get Away with Murder, because this is about his, sixth time or so, just literally handling the cops and handling police. So if you encounter him, he knows how to untalk or overtalk anybody.
So, whether he did it or not, the boyfriend is saying, I'm gonna take the rap because that is my man and we ride or die. But you're dying and he's living. So they went to the hospital, and you have to know something about this psychotic CIA-level narcissist mentalist. What you need to know about this man is he can look at you, he can stare you down, and put the fear of God on you in a way that's uncanny. And he goes to the hospital like an endearing father, and he waits. The detectives get to the location, and they're talking to Akil, barely unconscious, and they're saying, well, did your father shoot you? And he looks at Desmond and he's just like, no, 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 no. Scared. And then they say, well, did the boyfriend shoot you? And he looks at Desmond again and says, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at the police report, analyze the police report, which Sharita also posted, you really are gonna be like, what? Huh? So initially they said he shot himself, but then later the boyfriend shot him. And then they didn't know where the shots came from. It just magically appeared like Lucky Charms. So, in a nutshell, the detective said, well, we have the smoking gun, literally. And the boyfriend is overly excited to plead guilty in self-defense of defending his lover against his horrible son that was literally ravaging his dad. This man right here prides himself on evading police. He prides himself on evading law enforcement and tricking judges and tricking public defenders and stuff like that. And he's like a slippery worm. He is. He has success. Like, it should be studied. And the last thought is that it should absolutely be studied on how to get away with things. Because this is about his, sixth time or so, just literally handling the cops and handling police. So, if you encounter him, he knows how to outtalk or overtalk anybody. The most calculated part of this whole thing happened at the hospital. Sharita describes Desmond as a narcissist with CIA-level manipulation skills. She said he can look at you, stare you down, and put the fear of God in you in a way that's uncanny. So when detectives came to the hospital to question Akil, who was barely conscious, tubes everywhere, fighting for his life, Desmond was right there in the room. Sharita said if you read the police report carefully, you'll see the inconsistencies. First, they said Akil shot himself. Then later, the boyfriend shot him. Then they didn't know where the shots came from. It just magically appeared. The detective told Sharita they had their smoking gun. Literally. Shelton had the weapon, was on camera with it, and was eager to plead guilty in self-defense for protecting his man from his horrible son. And here's the thing about Desmond that Sharita kept emphasizing. This man prides himself on evading police, on tricking judges, manipulating public defenders, slipping through the legal system. She said it should be studied. This was his sixth time getting away with something major. Sharita's exact words, "It's really fascinating at this point that my own son will never get justice from his father doing the most foul, dirtiest, down-low thing in the world that a father can ever do to a child. But you know what? The blessing is that my son will always be taken care of, and he will never have to worry, ever have to worry about not feeling loved or protected or seen or heard, because that's what real parents who love their kids do. Akil was rushed into surgery. The damage was severe, paralyzed from the neck down, on a ventilator, fighting for every breath. But this young man, he's a fighter. For the first 4 days, he was in the hospital as a John Doe. Nobody knew who he was. It was actually a case manager who refused to give up, who kept trying to identify him. She figured out his Instagram, found his sister Aaliyah's page, and contacted her. Aaliyah was about an hour away and got to the hospital as fast as she could. That's when she called her mother. Sharita drove from Ohio to Georgia immediately. And from that moment on, she's been by her son's side. The updates she gave were heartbreaking. Akil developed pneumonia. His temperature kept spiking to 102 degrees. They had ice bags on him, constantly trying to bring his fever down. He was going back and forth between a hospital bed and a wheelchair, wearing a neck collar he hated but needed to keep from hurting himself. But Akil kept fighting. Against every odd, he kept pushing. There's video of him talking after doctors said he'd never speak normally again. I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm talking. I feel great. And I just want y'all to know that when you seek God first, everything will work out. There's the moment that brought everyone to tears, his first burger. Doctors said he'd never be able to eat solid food again. But months later, there's Akil taking his time, eating a burger, and his reaction said everything. Ready? Your first burger. You ready? Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. It's worth it. It was worth it. It is. I agree with him on that. It's worth it. It was worth every weird pain, every doctor visit, everything. That meal, like, yeah, boy. We did it. A lot more to go, but that was worth it. For real. But that was good. If that doesn't show you the strength of this young man, I don't know what will. But the medical bills kept piling up. We're talking over $750,000. Sharita is responsible for 20% of that, over $150,000. She created a GoFundMe, started asking for help, something she said she hated doing because she doesn't like to beg. And this is where you see a mother breaking. There's video of Sharita on live, just completely overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. This is by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to come in my life, while also knowing that my son will never get justice. And it's so difficult, and it's so unfair. But God is in control. God is absolutely in control. She talked about leaving her husband in Ohio to come down to Georgia, about trying to be strong for both her kids, Akil in the hospital fighting pneumonia, and Aaliyah taking it really hard, about how the moms in the community, the real church people, were the ones calling her, praying over her, petitioning God on her behalf. We raised $5,000, she said through tears. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's just not enough. And I'm scared, and I'm petrified. But even in her darkest moment, Sharita held on to her faith. And I'm trying to be a strong mom. I'm trying to be a strong mom for my kids. Shelton Johnson was arrested and charged with the shooting. He's currently out on bond. And here's the part that should tell you everything. Shelton and Desmond are still together. Still together. After everything that happened, after Akil was left paralyzed, after the family was destroyed, after a 27-year-old's life was stolen, Desmond and Shelton are still playing house like nothing happened. Sharita said it best. That alone speaks volumes as to how morally bankrupt Akil's father is. No trial date has been set. No justice has been served. And Sharita fully believes her ex-husband will walk away from this, like he's walked away from everything else. So, what do we take away from Akil Searcy's story? This is about more than a shooting over dirty dishes. This is about a father who spent decades manipulating, controlling, and abusing his children. A man who cared more about his image than his son's life. A man who potentially orchestrated his own son's shooting and let his boyfriend take the fall. But it's also about a mother's love. Sharita lost custody of her kids through manipulation and legal tactics. She watched from a distance as they were abused, tried everything she could through the courts, and was denied again and again. Now her son is paralyzed, her daughter is traumatized, and she's left picking up the pieces while the man responsible walks free. And it's about Akil's strength, a young man who survived being shot, who's paralyzed from the neck down, who was told he'd never speak or eat again, and he's doing both. Who says, when you keep God first, everything going to work out, even from a hospital bed. Period. The GoFundMe is still active for anyone who wants to help with medical expenses. Akil still has a long road ahead. Sharita is still fighting for her son's recovery, for her daughter's healing, for some semblance of justice, even though she knows it probably won't come. This is Trending Tragedies. And this is one of those cases that reminds us that the justice system doesn't always get it right, that narcissists can manipulate their way out of anything, that some people care more about their image than their own children's lives. But it also reminds us that love is stronger than hate, that faith can sustain you when everything else fails, that community matters, and that some people, like Akil, have a strength that can't be broken. Not by a bullet, not by paralysis, not by anything. As Sharita said, my son will always be taken care of, and he will never have to worry ever about not feeling loved or protected or seen or heard, because that's what real parents who love their kids do. I appreciate you. I love you. Stay strong.